to podcast number 8 called Faulty Workmanship.
Workmanship that is faulty.
So that's right, we're getting away from the last few ones of legislation updates and heading back towards the nuts and bolts, one of the nuts and bolts of insurance brokers' life, which is the diving into the non-standard endorsements and exclusions. And so you reckon faulty workmanship is one of those big ones?
Yeah, g'day guys, how are you? It's Millsy. Faulty workmanship, I'm seeing it pop up more and more, especially in the last couple of years and even more so in the last 12 months. Insurance media, internal here, we're talking about a lot more. Darren Free, our National Claims Manager, is dealing with a lot more as well. So that could be from your small blue-collar tradies up into your manufacturers, and even medium-sized clients as well. So we're seeing it more and more. I think we need to probably actually start a conversation about it. To me, it's very relevant. I think it's important for us to actually talk to our clients about faulty workmanship. Generally, it's not covered, but there is provisions in policies where there's going to be obviously a cover for liability policy for property damage, a third-party property damage. But I think it's important, Mick, at the moment we need to be talking about it.
Yeah, agreed as always, mate. So I guess you raised this because this is one of your passion projects. So it got me thinking about why. I guess long story short, insurers don't want it.
Yeah.
So that's why 9 times out of 10, or probably 99%, faulty workmanship is not offered.
Yeah.
It's sitting there as an endorsement for an exclusion on a policy.
Yeah.
So that raises a few things. Are brokers bringing that to clients' attention? And you got some feedback on that. But then the fact is, insurers don't want it. So the brokers have really got to hunt and dig to find an option for the client.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, like our Jeff Ward at Fordham Underwriting, Jeff, under his trade, he believe can do the faulty workmanship endorsement for a sublimit. I think it's 20 or 30,000 from memory. There's a few other providers like Brooklyn, High Street do offer it under different endorsements, whether it be errors and omissions or a faulty workmanship endorsement. Some of the mid-market insurers, such as Berkeley, for example, under SCTP, can offer these extensions as well. From my point of view, I reckon we need to talk to these sort of clients that if they have that exposure and the exact work they do on projects, and that faulty workmanship generally is not covered, the actual work being performed.
Yeah. And as brokers, we can't hang our hat on the fact that insurers don't want it. So, you have a client call with a claim, faulty workmanship, you go back and say, mate, not covered. They go, well, why didn't you offer it to me? What we're kind of seeing is brokers saying to the client, well, no, insurers don't really want faulty workmanship. Yeah. That raises 2 points for me.
Yeah.
That raises the client wasn't aware of it. So we actually put it in bright with pink polka dots for all I care, but the client has to be told specifically they are not covered for this.
That's right. Yeah.
But then also show the client where you've gone to market and come back, because we are, like you said, some insurers providing sublimits.
Yeah.
Something's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But radio silence on faulty workmanship, in terms of letting the client know and at least getting some quotes, is probably where we need to be.
Yeah, look, definitely, Mick. I think the only time I'm seeing it being brought up is at claim time. There's an incident, so we're talking about internally and then going back to insurer, then a lot of times being declined, and it goes to IDR, and may even go to AFCA.
Yeah.
They're really difficult conversations at the moment. So a client thinks that, oh yeah, I've stuffed up, the liability policy should pay it out. They could be under pressure from bigger suppliers as well, or principals. So that's a really difficult conversation. So we've seen some real doozies over the last couple of years. There's been some claims where the actual faulty workmanship, so that's not even third-party property damage, but just the faulty workmanship alone has been as high as $1-2 million. I mean, that's massive.
Well, yeah, and more than just the last couple of years, the last few months, I've seen come across your desk, mine and Darren's.
Yeah, exactly, mate. And I actually think one of the conversations you're going to have with your clients at the moment is something as simple as, do you think you cover faulty workmanship? or do you want cover for faulty workmanship? And you've got to be quite upfront and actually document that conversation so they can actually have a think about it and the work they do and the potential exposures there, that if they do stuff up, then, and it's just purely faulty workmanship on a part or product or whatever it is, then they're probably up for it. It's not going to be on the insurer. But look, every case is different. That's important to remember. It's not just one size fits all here. It can be very, very complex, and some of those claims can just drag on for ages and ages and ages when it's a product issue. Or is there property damage that's clear or not clear? If there's no property damage that's clear, that's a difficult conversation to have with clients and the insurers as well.
I really like that approach. So to the client, the broker says to the client, hey, do you know you're not covered, or do you know what cover you have?
Yeah.
So the wording against me.
Well, I reckon it's something as simple as, do you think you cover faulty workmanship? Or, maybe the next question is, or do you want faulty workmanship, and raise that conversation with them. It seems to be happening more and more, especially in the building industry, whether it be small, medium, large operators. Those sort of claims are lengthy, costly, and someone's going to have to pay. I think it's really relevant that we sort of highlight that to clients at the moment.
I agree. I was thinking earlier when you raised this. So from a client's point of view, they see, well, public liability covers me for personal injury and property damage.
Yeah.
Mate, I've just damaged, I'm a tiler, right? I've just laid all these tiles the wrong way. I've damaged their property.
Yeah.
I guess the broker, in leading from that question that you had, do you think you're covered or not? We've probably need to figure out an easy, simple way to explain the fact that property damage is not faulty workmanship.
Yeah.
If you lay those tiles wrong when you stuff up, that's not negligence in property damage.
Yeah.
You've got to rip up those tiles because you did.
That's right.
Faulty work.
Yeah, exactly. And we're seeing it more and more, and especially those smaller operators as well.
Yeah. You're right. And if I put my insurer's hat on, the last thing I want to do is provide a policy for people who aren't incentivized to provide good work.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. And in most cases, it doesn't come under a builder's warranty claim either, because builder's warranty usually only kicks in if the builder passes away, goes missing, or goes insolvent, which is usually the big one at the moment. But if that's an operational company, generally that's on the builder or tradie or contractor, whoever it is, to actually rectify that themselves. I mean, I'll read a standard exclusion for faulty workmanship. Sort of reads as simple as this: the cost of performing, completing, correcting, or improving any work undertaken by you. So if you stuff up with whatever job and it hasn't caused any further property damage to third party, then in theory that's just on you. But that's a simple sort of explanation there, but we all know that these ones aren't that simple. So I suppose the moral here is you really need to discuss this sort of situation with clients at what work they're actually doing.
Yep. So taking a step back, if we know that most insurers don't want to do faulty workmanship, and you're not going to get a full limit of cover under your lives anyway. At best, it's going to be a sub-limit, probably an increased excess. We're seeing 25k excess.
That's right.
Floating around.
Yeah.
So premium's higher, sub-limit's much lower, excess is higher, and you've got to work a fair bit harder to get those quotes.
Yeah.
And we're seeing some of our brokers now approach the market up to 10 plus underwriters.
That's right. Yeah.
Getting knocked back. So putting like a business owner's hat on, I'd probably want to have that conversation with the client beforehand and say, hey, look, you're looking at between 10 to 30k excess.
Yeah.
Premium's probably going to at least double or triple.
Yeah.
You may have a sub-limit of X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go down that path and check for you?
Yeah.
And that way they've kind of opted in or out of that pathway.
Yeah, and I suppose that leads us into construction policies.
Yeah.
So,
good point.
Depending on the client's occupation, it's probably well worth that conversation with the client, and then a construction insurer. Can they take out Section 1, Section 2 construction policy, because there's certainly right back, especially if we use our one of our number one partners, Mick on insurance. They've certainly got some right backs for workmanship issues as well. So that's one certainly to consider, that Section 1 cover and Section 2, and with Mecon's cover advantage endorsement as well. There's certainly right backs there, but
we should say this is not a paid endorsement for Mecon, but shout out to her waiter, one of the best underwriters.
Glenn Ross and Nick, how you going? But look, I'm noticing a few ARs talk to me about it, that even with long-standing clients who might have just had a pure liability policy, they realise now that they actually have to quote that Section 1, Section 2 construction policy and have that conversation, because there's exposures there just from normal weather elements, but also the potential for faulty workmanship as well. So
I agree with all that 100%. The operational issue though is most of the faulty workmanship requests that we're kind of seeing coming from the trade side. And that tends just to be standalone trades, maybe a bit of property in there. So we've got to figure out how we take that client on the journey to at least show them contract works versus just plain old pub vibe.
I suppose the downside also on that, Mick, is a lot of those occupations probably can't get a construction policy as well. But it's up to the construction insurer to offer, and some of those tradies, they might not do it. Like, for example, some of the small operators with like waterproofers, perhaps they may not be able to get an actual construction policy for the occupation specific, or the occupation itself might just be not suitable for a construction policy. So I mean, that's, I guess, a bit of a downside.
Everyone's under the pump, change the legislation, hard market. So it's hard. But if we can pick up the phone to an underwriter, contracts works underwriter or two, and say, hey, we've got a waterproofer, do you guys do this or not? We're looking for faulty workmanship type expanded cover. You can add that before you do all the work. You speak to the client first to see if they actually want it. And if they don't, tickety boo, you file note everything. If they do want it, then that's even a better win, because you're there seen more as the trusted advisor, not just, you ask for a quote, I'll give you a quote back. And then you probably feel more comfortable spending a bit more time on that. You're going to charge a relevant broker fee because it's your time working on it. But it's probably just triaging that with the client first to see if they're purely price-based, and then you file note the hell out of it, shoot it back to the client to say you chose not to do this because of budget constraints or whatever.
Look, it's more relevant than ever with our, advice model, isn't it? So we need to be shown that we put a construction quote in front of them and discussed X, Y, Z, and also faulty workmanship potential endorsements on the liability policy. But we need to be shown that we can document that even more so than ever, because we all know, we go back to our advice stories we've been talking about over the last few podcasts. It's just crucial that you document everything in that conversation.
Well, following from documentation, so just the scenario I'll put to you that we're seeing now, clients calling back saying, got a claim, no, it's faulty workmanship, you're not covered. I guess what we're kind of telling our brokers now is, so once that arises, then you got the claims issue to be upfront with the client about. Then I think brokers should actually, if they haven't got faulty workmanship quotes, or at least the request yet, once this situation arises, the broker needs to go out, get some terms, and the terms are either indicative only or declines. Either way, that needs to be taken back to the client ASAP and say, mate, we're dealing with this claim. Let's go through it. We'll get to IDR if we need to, blah, blah, blah. But in the meantime, do you want this fault? Here's some quotes, sub-quotes for faulty workmanship. Do you want it or not? And then that paints a position for the client. If the client doesn't take it, that really bolsters a PI claim for us, because if they're not willing to take it now, they certainly wouldn't have taken it prior to the risk. I had a good point there. So it's asking the client their position on that, but it's also making, if the client wants to go ahead with it, the amount of times we see claims, even outside of faulty workmanship, if it's uninsured, we're not seeing the broker fix that immediately. They're waiting till the claim gets sorted, and then they might do a review with the client at renewal time. But if it's an uninsured loss, the broker needs to speak to the client about that uninsured loss completely separate to the claim.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, like yeah, I think so. I suppose, but I'm just sort of thinking, is that sort of at the same time as a claim going through? Is that a challenging conversation?
Yeah, it's much easier doing that when you do the review up front.
Yeah.
But if there's an uninsured loss,
Yeah.
and just say it might be a partial loss.
Yeah.
But what happens in 2 weeks' time if the client has a larger loss?
Yeah.
I think we actually,
sure. Yeah.
and this is broader than faulty workmanship. It's kind of, if you've identified an uninsured loss, we at least got to go back to the client to give them, say, mate, for an extra $5,000, did you want this premium now? If they say no, it establishes the fact they probably wouldn't have taken it prior.
Yeah.
If they take it, then you're, aside from the extra earn, you're now reducing the exposure for the client and yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
It's not a
Yeah.
Me personally, I agree. I'm not forcing anyone that you have to do it the day after an uninsured loss.
Yeah.
I personally think it's best practice.
Well, yeah, I mean, we certainly need to be talking about this, before these losses occur, don't we? Like, I mean, especially at new business renewal time, even maybe endorsement time, we need to be having that discussion about faulty workmanship at the moment. I think it's really relevant. I'm seeing heaps of it come through at the moment, and water damage issues, waterproofing, whatever it might be, whatever tradie roofing, it's happening more and more. So I think rather than just kicking over that tradie renewal or small sort of blue collar contractor, it's well worth having a discussion about faulty workmanship. Do you mind if I just read this really quick example out, Mick?
Okay.
Maybe 18 seconds, maybe shorter. This is actually by Michael White just a couple of weeks ago, and from Steadfast, and I thought it was really relevant at the moment, just to give you an example where a potential faulty workmanship can be heaps, whereas the actual third-party property damage can be quite minimal, but so it still could be a claim. So the insured excavated a hole for the pool. They placed the pool into the hole, backfilled against the pool. They compacted the backfill, and then they landscaped around the pool. That backfill is not properly compacted, and the pool moved in the ground and cracked. The insured had to repair the crack and remove the backfill and recompact. The repair of the crack was covered. There's a lot of cracks in there. Those costs were not part of the cost of performing, completing, correcting, or improving any work undertaken by you. The cost of removing and recompacting the backfill is not covered. That cost is for the cost of correcting the work undertaken by the insured. So if the landscaping had to be removed and replaced as part of the cost of repairing a backfill, that would also not be covered, even though the landscaping itself is not faulty. This is also part of the cost of correcting the work undertaken by the insured. So there's a lot of work there for a contractor, and that's not covered by insurance. It might be a small crack is covered, but that's it. So we saw a few examples recently where that $2 million of the work that the contractor is actually doing, but there's no third-party damage. So that's a massive exposure to a builder, and time spent and costs with labour to rectify that issue. And in most cases, that would not be claimable. So that's not a conversation you want to be having after the fact, I think. So
no, yeah, 100%. I just I had a hopefully a different. What I was talking about earlier about fixing the problem after the fact.
Yeah.
Just imagine you've got a tiler, and the activities they're insured for are internal, external tiling. But it turns out they actually do tiling for shopping centres as well. So a claim comes through for a shopping centre on Monday, and you let the client know, mate, you're not covered, we don't have this insured activity. The very first thing that I want any broker to do is go back to the current policy and say, hey, we've got a claim in here, looks like it's uninsured, but we need to add on shopping centres. And if that insurer can't do it, then you keep going to the market and you find out.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring that up is what we're seeing is we've identified there's a serious uninsured issue, activity or some insured, but we're not seeing that actually updated, amended,
Okay. Yeah.
until post, either well after post the claim,
Yeah.
or at review time.
Right.
And I'm just trailing that back to faulty workmanship. If we identify it's uninsured, day one, for me, day one or day two, we have to go to the market, go back to the client and present them terms or present them all the declines.
Yep.
So they are aware they can either take it up or they're uninsured.
Yep.
Yep. So, yeah.
Well, heaps of food for thought there, mate.
Let's go back to legislation talk.
TMDs, we miss them. We miss them already. Yeah, look, yeah, thanks, guys. That's I reckon we probably wrap it up, Mick. You reckon? Yeah.
Yeah, mate.
That's enough on faulty workmanship. So, look, very long story, kind of short. Just be aware of it, guys. Talk about a new business, renewal time, even maybe endorsement time as well. I think it's better having that chat to your client now about it and documenting that in your covering email or record of advice, rather than after the fact at the moment. Yeah.
Well said.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All right. All the best, guys. See you for episode 9.
Take care.